Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Surf and Sales podcast. I'm your co-host. I'm Scott Least, here with my buddy Richard Harris, and we are joined today by Kate Lewis in Manchester in the UK. Kate is the CEO and co-founder of e4enable, and we're really excited to talk to her and continue our mission of learning more and more about sales in the UK and getting different perspectives on sales and leadership and growth and all this stuff. So thanks so much for joining us, Kate.
Oh, it's great to be here, gentlemen. Looking forward to it.
I'm very excited and have already declared that Kate is my favorite UK sales leader because off camera in the first 30 seconds, she told me that she's a Liverpool supporter. So
yeah,
we're already bonded. So I'm very excited about this.
Whole family.
So tell us about your company. Tell us about e4enable and what you all do and why you started it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so e4enable is a competency-based coaching platform, essentially taking you on the journey from definition of what good looks like to developing your salespeople towards that goal and then measuring the outcomes. And it's a huge passion of mine to peel back the usual kind of whip them to work them hard type approach and actually understanding the intellect, the skill, the behaviors that sit behind what makes a great salesperson. And it came about from two areas, actually. One, I was rolling out some sales training globally at a previous organization, and everybody high fives, loved it. Yeah, high five, top 10, love it, yeah. And then tomorrow arrives and everyone gets back to the day job and it sort of goes and disappears, right? Just disappears because the pressure comes on and all of the good things they said they were going to do go out the window. And it's not just salespeople, it's sales leaders who, to me, are the pivotal part of any change program like that. So that made me think, okay, so if you want to instill change, how do you make sure it's embedded and reinforced? Because it's not necessarily just the training. In fact, the training is just one small part of it. It's all the stuff that comes after, right? It's all the stuff that comes after that actually embeds it and creates becomes part of your DNA as an organization. And the second part that drove kind of the birth of e4enable was just being flippantly asked on numerous occasions, can you just rate your salespeople? Just, I want to know, yeah, ABC players, please, just rate your salespeople. And kind of going, well, that's great. Based on what? You know, because numbers are part of the story. They really are. And they're a hugely important part of the story, right? Massively important. But that doesn't necessarily say who are my A players. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily say who I would want on my bus going forward. And so that definition of what does good look like, what does great look like, and being able to assess both from a behavioral and skill perspective and an outcomes perspective was really, really important to me. And I couldn't get to that place where it could be spread throughout an organization and become part of the operating rhythm. And so I thought, sod it. If I can't find it, I'll build it.
Yeah. So I have a question. So because I run into this all the time, and Scott knows me, I'm really big on the psychology of sales and the mindset of sales and salespeople, and frankly, the mindset of humans. But the first hump you have to get over isn't with the team, it's with that leadership group of like, wait a minute, a person's not a number. It's not about productivity and output all the time in terms of a sheer formulaic perspective. How do you encourage the leadership to change their frame of reference around that? Because I think that to me is, you know, they'll often, I can only imagine you've heard, Kate, that's fantastic. I love that. But, you know, ignore all that stuff Kate just said and get me back to the number, right?
Yeah.
How do you even start to have that conversation at the leadership level, which is where it's got to start?
Yep. So in kind of instilling that cultural change, first of all, you do have to define, everybody has to speak the same language. So you have to define what good looks like and you have to buy into it from top to bottom, right? So the CRO, the SVP of sales has to be able to say, I buy into this. I'm going to do it with my sales leaders. I'm going to model those behaviors and I am going to instill this culture.
Yeah,
so
but what does that mean?
Sorry,
So what do you say to the CRO who is the high five guy? Right? How do you get that CRO to stop, pause, take a breath, and in my opinion, admit what they've known all along, but they've just purposely avoided? where do you take that conversation with that type of person?
So I think it's the same with any sales conversation. It's through a narrative of stories, isn't it, and experiences. It's we all intrinsically know we've come across that situation where we've had a brilliant performer that's smashing the numbers, but we don't know why. We can't replicate them. They're a bit of a, can I swear on this? They're a bit of a shitbag.
Yes.
They're not unhealthy, not healthy, and perhaps they're part luck. So I would tend to share my experiences as a senior sales leader and say, I've had people who've smashed their number that I would never want in my organization if I was to pick them going forward. Their behaviors are bad, or they've just had a drop in at the end of year, or a great partner that they've perhaps worked with and come in lucky. So it's peeling that back. And B, after you've done that, it's understanding, if you think what you're doing right now is working, that's great. But that means that you're not pushing yourself to be the best. That means you're not pushing yourself to have every single one of your sales teams operating at that highest level. Kevin Dorsey posted something on LinkedIn that just always resonated with me massively. And that was, why do we always look to the average to start measuring people against? Why do we say we're looking at the average order cycle, we're looking at the average order size, we're looking at the average days to win, all of these things? Why aren't we saying, but this is the best? We want to have everybody moving towards the best, not that they're just the right side of average. So if we're going to benchmark people, if we're going to push that way, we need to understand what makes those people the best. So from a CRO perspective, if we can say, okay, if you can have all of your salespeople driving towards that best point, because we understand what creates that best point, then we've got a much, much healthier sales organization, both mindset-wise and behavioral-wise and skill-wise and performance-wise.
I want to go back a minute to what you said about a top performer that you don't want in your organization. And I want to know, what would somebody have to do, or how would they behave to get Kate to let them go from your sales organization? I've terminated multiple people who were number one or close to that in the company. And so I want to hear your perspective and what would cause you to do that, and what advice you'd have for sales leaders who have some of these people who do quite well but are a bit of a pain in the ass in their organization. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, okay. So why would I let someone go? Of course, it's gross misconduct, right? So notwithstanding somebody does something heinous, okay,
Yeah,
that we would exit the organization. So there's a couple of approaches there. First of all, I think when you start your journey of defining what good looks like, it calls those individuals out, and it means that they have also got a coaching opportunity. Because when they start to realize where their weaknesses lie and how much better they could become if they were to work on those weaknesses, that's one area. So it's, defining what good looks like is not just for your bad performers, it's for your good performers and where they can grow as individuals by being coached in those areas. But for me, it's things like interdepartmental feedback. If somebody's toxic with an organization, if they are causing the team to be pulled down, both mentally and behaviorally, if the feedback from those departments is that they're impossible to work with because of the challenges they're causing, that for me would warrant a serious conversation.
And then
now
go ahead.
I was going to say, you've got to have pretty big balls, because it's scary to exit somebody who's a top performer. That's really scary, because that opens up the whole question of, how do we replace them? They bring in the dollars. They're the one that recovers my quarter every cycle. They'll save the team.
Yeah, and it's those anxious moments that hold us hostage.
Yeah.
But maybe now tell us about what happens in reality and the benefit that you get from actually doing that, because that part I don't think gets talked about enough.
Well, for me, I think it gives everybody around them the chance and the space to grow. They stop becoming the center of everything and this unknown magical force that drives them forward, that nobody else can understand the ingredients that go into it. So by removing that one anomaly, by not having them stuck on a pedestal that they are what great looks like, actually they're not. They drive the number, yes, but they're not what makes the whole for me as an individual and for a team to succeed. Then it gives everybody else a space to grow. And that's why I think fundamentally peeling back behind the numbers is so important. And again, I'll go back to the fact that you can coach somebody on the areas of skill and weakness in that sense, but you can coach a top performer who's sometimes unaware of how toxic they can be and how they're not engaging with the team and how others perhaps may perceive them, but you've got to call it out first.
I totally agree. It's funny. I hope my sound's coming through. There's always somebody who's number 2 and 3, and what ends up happening, I see, is that 2, 3, and 4 try to battle it out for number 1, right? From that, because you've gotten rid of that top position. So thereby, you really have raised 3 or 4 other people's efforts and attitude and excitement, and then just the fact that they don't have to keep their mouth shut. Like oftentimes, I've done this, and I've allowed myself to be held hostage in this situation. I've gotten rid of the top performer, and the level of relaxation that comes from the team when you let go of this person, the level of, oh my God, it took you long enough. Thank God you finally did it, right? The better off you are. And then you also increase not just the camaraderie on the team. Hopefully, if you've done it the right way, you've improved your leadership capabilities. You've built more trust with your team as a leader. So you've been able to do all these amazing things that are the intangibles that Scott was, and you were both talking about. So I love it. I love that you're advising this to people, because I think it needs to be done more often.
It's funny. I think a lot of the time that sort of top performer in that.
That was me.
Richard is over here mucking up the computer. Stop muting the
Does that
guest.
work if I do it?
That's the first time that has happened. This is a new milestone on the show. Richard has muted our guest. Well done.
I just had such a wonderful nugget of wisdom as well to impart. No, what I was going to say is quite often they're seen as a can't excuse. I can't do what they've done. I can't. And you find by removing that, it becomes I can. Because you haven't, again, this whole mystical idea that nobody can do what they do. Nobody can do it that way. We don't know how he does it, or she does it, but they get there. So it suddenly turns a can't into a can. Now I hope, and again, that's not the experience of so many people. And I think it's important to say, not all top performers are shitbags by any means, and it's the ones that are generous with their time, that coach others, that play the team game, and that still drive forward that performance, are the absolute gold dust that you want to fight to keep in your organization.
You've been a head of sales, VP of sales, whatever you want to call it, a number of times. It looks like 4 or 5 based on your profile. When did you know that it was the right time for you to go out on your own and build your own company? Was this something that you had thought about for a while, that you had, a goal of yours like 10, 15 years prior, or did it just kind of happen?
I think part plan, part opportunity, and timing. When I fill out, so a couple of times in my career, I've been asked to fill out like sales questionnaires. Are you right for sales? Do you know the behavioral kind of, are you a right fit for sales? And in every single one, I come out as no.
You come out as no on all.
I come out as no. All of them.
Yeah, I came out no all the time early in my career. I don't know what would happen now.
Oh, well, that's good. So yeah, earlier on, I came out as no, right? And so I think it's because they're all driven to this. You just want to hit the number, you want to smash it, you want to do this, this, and this. And I love the creativity aspect. I love the nurturing. I love mentoring, coaching, and developing other people. And I like roles that give me that ability. And when I saw the gap in kind of market, and I saw that I wanted to create something for myself, actually, as a sales leader, if I put myself in that shoes, it was, I need this. And then it became it also satisfied my need for creativity and development. And I love getting involved in like lots of different things in an organization, not just being pigeonholed into just sales. it really satisfied my kind of personality, I guess. And that allowed me to take the leap.
Are you finding it to be what you expected? I mean, you're in your first year, for context of everybody. So you and I started at exactly the same time, by the way. October 2019 is when we both cut the cord and stopped working for anybody else. So I'm these questions are selfish on my part as I'm trying to learn somebody doing exactly what I'm doing. But how, what have you learned so far? Like, has it gone how you expected? Has it been a roller coaster? Are you doing, phenomenal? Is it a nightmare? Like, I'm curious for these kind of entrepreneurial learnings for people who've been in sales leadership roles for a number of years.
Yeah, okay. So in the business plan, I did not have a section for COVID. That was missing.
Poor forecasting.
It was poor forecasting on my part, planning on my part, but I did not have that. So, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. So to be honest, I've loved every minute of it. And part of what I loved every minute of it is I've been challenged. I've learned new things. I was a little novice and quiet on LinkedIn and things like that. I was the person that went, okay, I'm just going to reread that post 450 times. And then I'm going to be so anxious when I press post that worries me. And what I've found is I've found a new confidence. I've found a whole new tribe. Yeah. Is another thing. And it's part COVID, part otherwise, part communities coming together. But I have met people I never would have met. I've connected, I've joined groups, I've launched things and been part of, I almost want to say, and it seems a bit crappy given what's going on in the world, but there's a kind of a positive movement in sales. So I think for me, the timing is right, that sales is coming together and expecting higher standards and moving itself forward as a career choice, as a role, as an industry in its own right. And I think that's a hugely exciting thing to be part of. So that's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think we've really come together as a community, and there's little communities that have been forming. I run Thursday Night Sales. Richard runs Coffee Talk. I saw you participated in 5 on Friday with Amy.
Yeah, we brought that over to the UK now. Yeah,
Patrick and whatnot. Yeah, so I agree. If there is positives from everything you can take out.
Kate, were you on the female version of UK versus USA?
No, I was on the boys v girls UK version, but not on the girls US versus UK version.
What happened in the boys versus girls version? How did that happen?
Well, clearly. Actually, it was a really interesting discussion. I'm not normally one to label myself as a woman in business. I've steered clear of that, if in all honesty, because I'm a great believer in I'm a person, and if I'm right for the job, it's because I've got the right skills, behaviors, and culture. But that was a really insightful discussion that it turned into. It was it's a bit lighthearted in terms of the competitive angle of it, right? Yeah. It was fun,
of course.
But that was interesting.
So I would tell you to look at it a slightly different way, as and I appreciate the sort of non-gender approach, but I also think that then means we try to negate what we do bring to the table, because I am a guy. I bring something with me, right? I have to have, it's just who I am. Doesn't mean I can't be re-educated or get better. Same with you as a woman. You come from a perspective that's different than mine. So I'd want to learn from you as a woman. In fact, someone asked me the other day, who do I thrive better under, men or women as leaders? And I actually went back, and I've thrived probably like 60% better under women than men. And I really thought about it, and I was like, well, I wonder if that's because I come from split parents and my mom did most of the rearing, right? So did that afford some level of respect? So for me, I want to embrace it in a healthy way. I know there's danger there, right? But I would embrace who you are, would be my advice, right? Particularly as you move forward in this, as having done this the last 8 years as a consultant independent, you are who you are. Go for it. So
Yeah, and to that point, exactly. I am who I am. I happen to be a woman, and yes, I bring different things to the table, but we're a product of our experiences. And for me, touch wood, I've been very lucky. I've never had a sense that I don't fit or belong or have struggled because of my gender. I am extremely lucky about that. I recognize that, but because of that, I haven't ever seen myself in that gender way. I've just, I was schooled by my dad in terms of how to operate in business. He's my hero, right? And I've had women leaders who are great. I've had women leaders who are not great. I've had male leaders that are great and male leaders who have not. All of whom, again, I've never felt like I've been viewed as anything other than a
A
really
successful person.
a
Yeah.
successful
What,
person who's good at what I do.
what, talk more about your dad though. What did your dad instill in you? Like, if you think back to your, yeah, legitimately to your early childhood memories, right? You're growing up and your father's building your mental health and your self-worth and your self-esteem. What kind do you, what comes to mind when you hear those thoughts about your dad and him becoming your hero?
So my dad is it's a really good question. Gosh, my dad it has a strength and a clarity of kind of his conviction, and seeing him operate, in a meeting room. I had the joy of working with him for a number of years, and learned a lot of what, who I am and how I operate in business and in meetings from him. And his strength of belief and his ability to execute on that was something that really carries through with me. But he was also always fair. He was always fair, and still is to this day, a fair and thoughtful and kind man.
So,
And that well-rounded aspect, I think just sticks with me.
right. So you said earlier, right? Like it takes stories, right? What's a story? What's a time when you really remember? And look, it doesn't have to be in a meeting, a business meeting. It could be from your childhood or as you were growing into an adult. But I'm just curious to that story because I think that's what people love to hear.
Gosh, that's a really good question. You're making me drag through my memories here. So he's extremely kind of protective, and he will go the extra yards for anybody. In my early 20s, I had a lovely cat called Betty, black cat, got smushed on the road on Halloween. Right? How freak is that? Black cat smushed. I phoned my mum. I drove home from work and saw her there. Phoned my mum and dad, and I was distraught. I was just broken, and I had to drive past every day on this. And I said to my dad, I just can't bear the thought of driving past her every day until it clears away. So we drove home, and my mum told me. My dad's never told me this. Right, this is how he will do things. But my mum told me about 2 weeks later that later that night my dad couldn't settle, and he came out in the night with his spade and with his car. And bearing in mind, he lived 45 minutes away from me, and he cleared my cat off the road. And that's the loyalty and the not need for glory and just the type of man he is. And yeah.
That's beautiful, and that's what we want, right? Like you try to, as a leader, right? We protect our team from the executives, right? We don't tell them every time we get yelled at because we missed the number. We don't always go and yell at the team, right? We need to protect them and support them and nurture them and find a right way to rechange that message.
You have to have broad shoulders. Just
Yeah.
because pressure is being exerted down on you doesn't mean that you can't convert that into healthy pressure further down. You don't just need to be the messenger. You don't just need to carry that and say, I've been told I need to do more, so you do more. It's okay, I've been told I need to do more. I'm going to work with my team. I'm going to explore the areas that we can do this together, and I'm going to do the right things in order to get the outcome, not just push down hard. And that's a huge lesson. The other thing is that you give credit where credit's due. You don't need to tell everybody about the things that you've achieved. You can quietly go about supporting people and making them great and underpinning their career without needing to pat yourself on the back all the time and shout from the hilltops, I did that, I did that. It's enough to see your team grow and blossom and move through their career and just feel good about that for them.
What are some of the specific things that people can do to not just keep that shit rolling downhill and shield your team from the pressure. This is something that I think most sales leaders struggle with, in particular early in their career. Some people still struggle with it. I certainly struggle with it at times, even now. What are some of the specific things that one can do in your mind to do the right things?
So there's a couple that spring to mind. One, the first one is one size does not fit all. You need to understand your people individually and understand A, how you get the best out of them, and B, where you need to support them. So again, I'll go back to that. If you can understand what good looks like, you can understand where they're struggling and how to get the best out of them against those skills and behaviors that they have. Then you can drive the best outcome for that individual, and that best outcome for that individual will drive the best outcome for the team, because you're doing that with each individual. Not just going, I'm just going to one size fits all everybody and just tell them all to do the same thing. That for me doesn't work, because everybody works slightly differently and is motivated by different things that will drive them the extra mile. So that's one thing. Another thing is pulling the team together and being as transparent as you possibly can. I know in a particular situation that I was in, that there'd been some changes in the organization, and the team were facing an enormous amount of change, and therefore the gut reaction is just to react and kind of not either use the change as an excuse or not do it. And we actually we pulled together. We all got in a room, and we all created a shared goal. We called it the Big Hairy Audacious Goal. It was our BHAG. And we all had little monsters posted everywhere afterwards, just to remind us what our personal BHAG was, and then what we wanted to achieve as a team. What did we want to be known for? And that what's in it for me, that buy-in, rather than that you need to do this for me, it's you're doing it for you. You're doing it for the shared collective, and to achieve what we've all agreed is just a fundamental shift change in people wanting to perform and wanting to get there.
What is the co-founder relationship like? This is something that we don't talk about very often on our show.
Well, I've got an unusual co-founder relationship.
Well, tell us about it.
Well, my co-founder is actually my other half, so is my husband. I'm in the enviable position that I happen to be married to a very gifted technical developer who has built and run development teams, is a gifted developer himself, and scaled those teams. So when I came home and I was frustrated, going, I want to do this, and why can't I do? I would love to be able to achieve this. It was him that said, well, why, I could develop that. And the rest is history. So we have, we have a husband and wife relationship, which I guess is fairly weird in the tech co-founder environment, but it works very well.
I have a client who is a husband and wife co-founding team, and they have gotten pushback from investors about their relationship in the business and outside of the business. It can't all be, perfect and positive. How do you balance like work stress and conflict with regular life and real life stress and conflict and decisions and all that? I'm trying to imagine, Richard knows my wife very well. I'm trying to imagine we're working alongside Janet and which one of us would kill the other person first.
Well, I think the first thing is to understand and recognize each other's areas of strength. So again, we're quite lucky that I will never tell him how to develop or what the best technology platform, the best way to do something in that sense. So we're very clear on that. That's your strength. That's your baby. And equally, he would never say to me, oh yeah, but have you thought about this and how you might sell to this person a bit better? And I'd be like, I'd say some strong words, let's be fair. So understanding our strengths is really clear. The other thing, and it was something somebody said on a revenue collective session we were on the other day, Suzanne Jacobs, and she said, the notion of work and life is quite interesting. People talk about work-life balance. If you are involved in what you do and you love what you do, it's not a work-life balance. It's just a life balance. So in everything that we do, I don't have these lines of demarcation that say, Nick, it's 5 o'clock. We can't talk about work anymore. We must talk about the children. It just ebbs and flows. It meanders through our life and is intrinsically weaved into it. So we'll be sitting watching, you know, I don't know, Game of Thrones and going, oh my God, I've just thought of an amazing idea for this. It just, or we'll be sitting having a glass of wine and chat about it. So yes, there's just, again, the whole life balance thing. Yes, it's disagreement. Yeah, there's debate, but understanding the strengths and understanding you're getting to a goal and understanding it's part of your life.
How long have the two of you been together before you started having a co-founder relationship together?
We'd been together about 13 years. And so 15 now. Well, yeah, coming up 15 years now.
So to some extent, you figured out how to navigate the challenging times in general, right? Whether it's conversations or disagreements, as opposed to imagine if you were 25-ish and just trying to start your relationship and your business, and not that it can't be done, but that's a whole other dynamic, I think. So I think you bring a life maturity to it in a different way.
Yeah, 100% agree. You know, if you think of e4enable as our third child, so, you know, we've done it with 2 kids. We've got 2 kids. We've navigated the disagreements around, you know, I would have done it this way, you would have done it that way, and you can navigate through that.
There it is. That's how you're going to go into business with Janet. That's it. It will be your.
I've sworn off having a third child of any kind.
Right. But Scott, you just gave birth to one in October. Let's be honest.
Oh God.
Oh, no,
so
I don't.
New business and new baby, Scott, at the same time.
No, he's teasing. He's saying my business is
the new baby. That is the third.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is.
No, you both are wrong. I'm telling myself repeatedly that my business is not a baby yet because I don't want to have anything to do with that. Are you nurturing and parenting burgeoning young salespeople?
Yes.
You are. What is that? Is it as challenging as it is for me and Richard with our young salespeople who are way smarter than me and way better negotiators already than I am?
I think it's been challenging them being, we took salespeople on as brand new, straight from school, like straight from university, straight from school. And they joined 3 weeks before the lockdown happened.
I mean, I meant your kids, not
like, my kids.
Not kids you're hiring. I meant, are you raising?
Both are good questions, though. I want to hear the answer.
Both are good questions. Yeah. Okay, my kids. So my daughter is gifted in the technical side of things, right? So she's a good negotiator because she's just steadfast. Yeah, she'll go that, but she's steadfast. So you find yourself in knots with her as a teenager. So she's absolute belief in what she's doing. My son is probably more in the sales side of things, but he's 10. He gets really interested in everything that I'm doing and everything we're doing. So yes and no, they are interested. Would I have them in the business? That's a different question. Having worked with family, I want them to go out and find their own experiences and find what works for them before I would even consider anything like that. They need to grow. I said we are a product of our experiences, and that means you need to have lots of experiences and lots of different perspectives in life before I bring them back into the fold.
On the flip side, would you go back and choose a different husband? No, I'm just kidding.
That's let me just think on that a minute, Richard.
Seriously, talk about the kids you are bringing on, right? You were starting to say, it sounded like you were starting to say, before the lockdown. So what happened? How did you navigate that? Because I think people are fascinated by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, God, we drink our own champagne, so it does help that we have this platform that allows me to make sure we're really clear around how to develop them as individuals. So that's been extremely helpful. So when there's lots of noise going on around you, when there's lots of change going on around you, again, having that map, having that frame of reference to always come back to. This is what we're trying to achieve. These are the things that we're trying to develop. This is why we're trying to do it. These are the goals that you're trying to achieve, and these are the outcomes that will drive, is extremely helpful. But even so, trying to build a culture in a new startup when nobody is there in an office together has been an interesting flip, to be honest.
So how do you do that, right? So like, what are 3 tips if I were going to go out and start some business and hire some salespeople right now? How would you encourage people to create that engaging culture, aside from using your platform,
Aside
which is
which,
obvious?
obvious, but buy it, no. So a couple of the things that work really well for us, practical things. We've always had a morning scrum. We call it scrum. It's like a developer scrum, and it's a whole company scrum. And it's every single morning. It's no more than 15 minutes, and it's a stand up. Here's what we're going to achieve today. Here's what we did yesterday. Here's what prevented me from achieving what I said I was going to do yesterday, and opening it out there to see if anybody's got any perspective and help on that. And then here's what I'm going to do today. That has helped everybody get to know each other in the organization, and we are small. Don't forget, in previous organizations we've done that just with sales and a couple of departments dipping in, and then we have a closure at the end of every day. So that's just the practical, right? I think learning from each other, so again involving the whole organization. So even in things like role plays, right? Not just doing a role play with me, but doing one with customer success, doing one with dev, seeing how different people react to the things that you're saying, again brings every department and everybody feeling like they're part of the same thing. And then I suppose finally, and this should go without saying in my opinion, but it's caring about the whole person. It's getting to know the whole person, getting to know what makes them tick, and letting
you do that in a remote world, right? Like, I mean, the obvious is sort of a happy hour type situation, or just part of the natural part of the morning scrum or afternoon wrap up. But anything specific you've done to help build that get to know each other person part?
Good question. What do we do just naturally within that? I would say probably the biggest thing is that immediacy of wanting to share news, share information, share what's going on around you. So I'm never afraid to just go to the team, oh my god, I've just got a meeting with so and so, or they'll phone me and say, Kate, I've got this email, how do I handle it? Or I've just done this, or I've just done that. So it's those like little micro moments that kind of build the bond. And again, I'll go back to that modeling the behaviors, right? So if I don't give myself as a whole person, as in let people know, my kids in a way, or my dog who's normally wandering around causing bother, and my foibles, I'm very often known to launch into song in the middle of a session if there's a word that triggers me. Just being yourself. Now, I've seen loads of stuff on LinkedIn and things on COVID's meant people need to be authentic. People need to be this. They should have always been like that. It's you, right? I am myself. I'm myself with my team. I'm myself with my customers. I'm myself with whomever I come across. Some of that comes with age and experience and kind of a confidence and knowledge in yourself and just being comfortable with yourself, I guess. But it still goes to modeling that if I can show my team that I'm comfortable, sometimes oversharing, then they feel the confidence to do the same thing, and that just again that builds that bond and that culture.
I'm just disappointed we didn't get a song out of this. Apparently, Scott and I are not very good at triggering you. So
it's little words like "let it go" or things like that. I'll just launch in, but I'm gonna hold back. It's hideous. My children have been known to say to me, "Mummy, you're hurting my ears," and that was from a very young age. So I wouldn't ask for it if I were you.
Maybe she's spared us, is what she's
I have spared you the pain and suffering.
Oh, I swear I just looked down at the clock and I was like, oh my God, we've just spent like 40 minutes like having this awesome conversation, which means I have to start to wrap it up. So I apologize, because I certainly want to have you back on here and just keep learning from you and stuff. But a couple things. One, where can people get a hold of you if they want to try and contact you?
Yeah, so it's pretty easy to get me. It's kate@e4enable.com, or find me on LinkedIn, Kate Lewis.
Great.
I'm not always about.
how can we help you? Like, we always sort of end the show this way of what can we do to help you?
I think continue the community and kind of the movement, and that sense of a shared goal as a sales environment. You know, for me, I want sales coaching and salespeople to be heard, to be understood, and getting involved with things like, you know, 5 on Friday. We've just brought this over to the UK, again with the ethos and understanding that we're helping people that are new to sales, stripping back that kind of notion of fear and of worry that I'm going to be criticized, to actually switching it to a positive coaching conversation, because they've got people who want to help them and move forward with that. So you know, doing things like that are hugely important, and promoting the right skills, mindset, behaviors, are so important in sales today. So, you know, if there were anything, it's to encourage people, to organizations, to reflect, start looking for themselves, what does good look like, and start making that cultural shift between towards a coaching culture, and to understanding the salespeople and what makes them tick and what makes them great at what they do, and really focusing on that, and having the bravery and the balls say, I'm going to put that first. That's what coaching first means to me. I'm going to put a coaching conversation first, and put my whip away, in terms of how to drive performance. So for me, it's get behind that as a message, which you guys already do. So it's hugely important.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks so much for joining us today and spending some time with us. It's been great getting to know you. And now we've established this connection. And so keep in touch with us. Let us know what we can do to be helpful to you. And hopefully we get a chance to.
I think we should bring her husband on with her.
Oh, tag team duo. I love it.
So I say it in fun and in jest, but it's also like, you don't get to hear that perspective very much. You know? So as that co-founder wedded relationship, in fact, I'd be willing to bet we could do an entire episode with the two of you to talk about the kinds of things co-founders need to do that you could give advice for, because they're younger, right? They're not even married. They're just two people co-founding, right? That would be a fascinating conversation too.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan.
All right, Kate,
he'll hate me for doing this now. He'll be like, what did you promise for me? But hey.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, gentlemen. See you soon.